Hello, friends. Welcome to Motivational, where I am joined by the wonderful content creator, Erik Anthony, aka Erik, where we are going to be talking about societal pressures. All right, Erik, please do me the honor and introduce yourself. Drop your links, your socials. Where can people find you? What are you playing on your stream right now? What are you doing? All of the things. Go ahead.
My name's Erik Anthony. I'm a variety content creator, primarily on Twitch. I also have my own podcast, which I call the Good People Podcast, which you can find on Apple and Spotify. I primarily do a lot of Nintendo story-driven games, retro stuff.
Okay.
I broadcast primarily on the weekends. It's kind of reminds me of back in like the old days when you were a kid and you had a Super Nintendo and pizza on Fridays. Like that's kind of like what I go for. We just sit, zone out, and play.
I love that.
That's pretty much my premise there.
Mm-hmm.
On the podcast, I talk to a lot of different content creators about their various platforms and what they do and how they got there. We also are planning a string of episodes where we talk about the issues that happen in the content creator community, how they kind of shape us and how they're kind of taking us where we're going on our journey as we continue through it. And you can find me on Erik, ERIK _DA_nerd, NERD. That's for Twitter, that's for Instagram, and that's also on Twitch.
What are you playing right now?
I've been doing the Mass Effect Legendary Edition on stream during the St. Jude month.
Okay.
And I've never finished them because the first game, originally when it was released, the controls were so bad I could never finish it.
Okay.
Like one of those hindrances, and people are like, no, you got to finish. You'll see it through. It's amazing. You'll love it. Finish it. See it through. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know. And every time I try it, I never get through it. But thankfully, this remastered Legendary thing has been great. They've fixed a bunch of that stuff, and the game's much more enjoyable to me.
Okay.
Off of stream, I've been doing Resident Evil Village, which is just
there you go. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the dark, HDR headphones.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Fancy.
Oh, yeah. It's been great.
I love that. Well, that's awesome. And you said that you are raising money for St. Jude, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Doing the St. Jude Play Live event. I'm currently up to $530.
Let's go.
I checked this morning. We're getting there.
Yeah, let's go. That's amazing. Every dollar counts. Every dollar counts.
Oh, most definitely.
You know what charity that every dollar counts, and that is absolutely incredible.
I've done it for the past like 4 years.
Yeah.
And I love every time we do it.
There's nothing like St. Jude time. There's nothing like it.
People go all out.
I know.
Like hot wings and spicy
I know.
candy. And I've retired the Bean Boozled and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, I'm gonna do it old school this year. Like, I'm just gonna speak about it and raise the awareness and let them know it's important. And
and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, like I can't handle any more vomit beans and all that kind of stuff. I'm past that point.
Yeah, no, and like honestly, sometimes I just tell my community, like, we're gonna raise money because it's the right thing to do. I'm not gonna have incentives. I'm not gonna have milestones because we just need to do this. It's important, So I completely and totally understand. No, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming onto the show. And being here,
and me.
I
love being a part of this kind of stuff.
I am so happy that you came to me with this, and like I said, we're talking about societal pressures today, and we're just gonna go ahead and jump into it if you want. So the first question that I have for you is, what are some societal pressures that you are currently feeling or experiencing? And like with this, like, I definitely feel like some part of it, age is important. It's an important point to make. But at the same time, you can just talk about just like, this is what I've been experiencing for the past, number of years or whatever. You can make it as blanket statement as you want so that you can protect yourself and like, obviously whatever you need to do. But what are some societal pressures that you are currently feeling or experiencing?
So it's interesting. I'm at that point now, like in life, where I'm kissing 40 years old. I'm going to be 38 in August.
Okay.
So I'm getting to that point where like, it's not necessarily, for me, it's not necessarily a societal pressure, but there's definitely a societal influence.
Okay.
The way to kind of round this out. So I'm starting to get to that point where it's like, okay, I need to start thinking about the things to see the remainder of my life through.
Right.
So things like a house, like I need to start figuring out where I'm gonna live. And let's
Yeah.
actually take a step back. Career is usually the primarily thing you kind of start thinking
Yeah.
about when you reach this age point. You look at where your career. Most
Yeah.
people are 10 to 8 to 10 years into their career at this
Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
depending on when you get out of college and when you start. So you start thinking about, okay, where's my career going?
Yeah.
So in my head, I'm at this point where it's like, okay, I need to start thinking about where I'm going to work to where I think about where I'm going to retire. So like, where am I going to work?
Gosh.
And that's
Yeah.
where I'd be like, okay, I'm going to retire at this place,
Yeah.
and then what comes with that is like, okay, I need to see about a house. Where do I
Yeah.
want to live? Where do I want to live to retirement?
Yeah.
And my income has to supplement that, my retirement savings, 401ks, and all this kind of stuff that you would think is completely boring as a teenager. All of a sudden just hits you, and you're like, oh God, I need to really, really start thinking about it.
You're
And
right.
as grim as it sounds, I need to start thinking about what happens when, God forbid, I pass on.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah.
Like I have stuff here, like I have a collection of records right here, and I've started cataloging these and seeing what the value in them is, and making a list, because I was telling my mom the other day, like, God forbid, if something happens and you need cash, you need to know which of these you can unload, to pay for whatever you need,
Yeah.
As sad as it sounds, but like these are the realities you kind of start facing
100%.
become an adult. And I started looking at things like my health. I was 450 pounds, 7 years ago, give or take. So it's like, okay, start thinking about my health. I started losing weight, and I was like, I need to be healthy because, eventually I want to because it gets harder as you get older. Physically, you just don't work as well. And all these kind of things just piled on me as I started thinking about life. Relationships, like, where am I going to be, as far as marriage and children. I'm thinking about, I was like, okay, I kind of want to have children. Like, I'm not ruling the idea of having children out, but it's also like, do I want to be an older dad? Because like I said, I'm going to be 40.
Right.
By the time my child's 18 going to college, I'll be near 60 and I'll be near retirement.
Yeah. Right.
So it's like all these things that kind of like just flip in and start getting into your head.
Existential
and you're like,
crisis.
oh yeah. Like people go through midlife crises. I'm in that whole thing. Like, I'm not even in the position to where I can have a midlife crisis because I haven't figured that stuff out yet.
Yeah.
Guys that have midlife crises have already figured this stuff out and they're bored. They're like bored, and then they go buy a Ferrari or whatever, or a motorcycle, which is in my head. Like I'm like, oh, I'd love to own a Triumph motorcycle someday. Like I need to start thinking about that.
I love it. Yeah.
And it's and that's the kind of stuff that like builds into you over time. This is stuff like I think the primary demographic of Twitch itself, that 18 to 25-year-old, they don't necessarily think about this stuff. And it plays a big part in our discussion that we'll have here throughout the whole thing.
Definitely.
But that's like what I've been feeling. It's like, okay, I need to start figuring out this stuff now, because as weird as it sounds, society's not pressuring me to do it. But there's an influence right now. At least in my position, there's an influence.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like when we're talking about, career and stuff, like I'm starting to think like, do I want to continue content creation into my 30s and, into 40? Like I'm starting to think about that and like, okay, well, what kind of job would I like to have? And like, obviously I would love to be a content creator, but like, is my body and my mind gonna keep continuing to carry me, because eventually it does get tiring, and I have a chronic illness, and like that plays into a lot of things. But I find myself as an almost 30-year-old really starting to, I guess, quote unquote, like explore that. And it's like, is content creation gonna be something that I'm going to be doing in my 40s? It's just the reality of the situation,
Most definitely.
So,
and it's kind of like it's funny when people say it's kind of like, I'm too old for this.
Yeah.
Like it's a true thing.
Yeah.
I've noticed over time, like, because I started Twitch 4 years ago,
Okay.
maybe
Okay.
5,
Yeah.
and I did the same thing like everyone does when they start. You 3 to 5 days, 3 to 4 days a week,
Right.
hours at a time,
Mm-hmm.
crank it through because you're trying to make it.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I'm older, and it's just like, and it's only been 5 years, but a lot happens in 5 years
Yeah.
as you
Yeah.
look at yourself and where you're going.
For sure.
And I was like, well, right now, at least in my position, like, I have my career, I
Mm-hmm.
have a job that pays my bills and
Mm-hmm.
keeps the roof over my head and stuff. And I was like, I don't necessarily need to be grinding this out
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
try and make this my job. And then when I think about it, I don't necessarily want this to be my job.
Yeah.
It was fun because when I talk about this, because I have a roommate, I live in Los Angeles, if anyone was curious, and my roommate's an actor.
Okay. Ooh,
And
nice.
It's interesting.
It's rough. Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
But like, I thought about it, and it's like, I don't know how he does it.
Yeah.
Whereas like his whole job, his whole career is like based off how many rejections and stuff, and like
Right.
acceptances and stuff he's gonna get, and that's
Yes.
month to month.
Yes. Yes. Your
You know?
looks, your physique,
Oh, yeah.
your all of that, all of that.
And it's one of those things where it's like, I've seen it to where they just didn't like him.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And,
Oh gosh.
and there's
Yeah.
nothing you did wrong.
No.
Like, you're good at what you do or whatever, but they just didn't like you. And
Yeah.
it didn't work for him. But like, it's based off, like, his whole thing is based off like how many rejections he
Yes.
got versus how many positives.
Yeah.
The positives, which ones are gonna pay and keep me afloat.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
I can't imagine living like my life on like
The
people's
edge.
acceptance
Yeah.
of me. People's
Yeah.
acceptance of me every month to month. Like, it's hard to do. And that's kind of what content creation is.
Honestly.
Depending on the route you're going, like if you're really trying to grow and grind and become a partner and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff, and
Right.
like, it's hard to do. And that's where I'm at the point where it's just like, I don't necessarily want this as my job.
Yeah.
I just like it as the side gig. And
Yeah. Yeah. And
you
that's
know.
totally respectable because, I mean, like I said, you just get to a point where it's like, how much longer can I do this before
Right.
I completely and like just burn out? Like, there's no fire left in me. You definitely start thinking about it. And like, if I can speak from a woman's perspective, like, and I'm gonna say this too before I say this other thing. I work in the modeling industry, and I have started to realize that my worth has been so much into how I look and what I can produce on set as far as the, physique and looks and stuff. And I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'd
imagine you experience a lot of the same stuff my roommate does.
Yes. And so you're talking about how, the job and how you feel is so much based on what other people feel about you and think about you, and rejections and stuff like that gets exhausting. And as an almost 30-year-old woman, like, I don't want to do that anymore, because here are the things that I'm starting to experience is like kids. I'm literally like complete strangers that I don't even know who they are. So when you think about having kids, and I'm like, okay, wait a second. Like, I'm only 29 years old. Like, hold on a second. Like, let's slow down. I still feel like I have not figured myself out. And you want me to bring a kid into the world like that, where I'm still trying to figure out who I am and what I want to do? You want me to bring a kid into that? No, that's, to me, that's irresponsible.
The thing is, like, talking about Latin upbringing and stuff like that. My mom's
oh my God.
Point, she's like, where's my grandchild?
Right.
Where's my grandchild?
Right.
And I'm like,
I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, okay. I'm kind of mean with her about it now, because she just keeps bringing it up. And it's like, okay, tell you what, I'll make a deal with you. I'll have the child, but you have to give me the $45,000 I need to educate it in 20 years.
Right.
Whatever my child may be,
Seriously.
or what's going. Yeah, like, the 45 grand I need to educate it.
Yeah.
And all along those lines, we're gonna be like, and it's funny, like, I'll joke about it and I'll play with it. Like, we were for Mother's Day, I took her out and we walked past a store in one of those outdoor shopping malls, and they had cute little like kid dresses and stuff, like sundresses and stuff.
Yeah.
You know how they do them. They put the
Yeah.
little picket fence and all that kind of stuff. It
Yes.
looks all cute. And
Adorable.
mom's like, "Oh, that's gonna be my granddaughter." I'm like, "You do realize the son you raised, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
your granddaughter's gonna have Doc Martens laced halfway and
Yes. Hell
have
yeah.
a guitar slung on her back. I don't know what kind of granddaughter you think you're gonna
Hell
have.
yeah.
You
Love
know,
that.
your son was a hellraiser, and your granddaughter or grandson was going to be 50% of that
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
or more, depending on how the
Yeah.
genetics work,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
just funny. And
Yeah.
she'll laugh about it. But to get to the seriousness of what you're saying, it's like, yeah, things are very, very different now compared to back then when
Absolutely.
our parents were having children. It's refreshing to hear like you're pretty close to age as me.
Yeah.
There's not much gap between us.
Yeah.
So, it's the same generational
Yeah. Yeah.
zone there. And things are a lot different. Like you could raise a family on 60 grand a year,
Right.
In
Yeah.
California.
Oh, yeah. No.
Now that's impossible.
There's no way. Yeah. Yeah.
You're not eating, or you're not doing anything.
Yeah.
You're sitting in the dark at home raising your family on 60
Yeah.
grand in California now.
Yeah.
So like things are way, way different. College didn't cost $50,000 to $70,000, for a standard education
Yes.
at a standard university.
Yes.
And this is all that kind of stuff that society's drilled into our heads for years.
Yeah.
And it messes people up.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And then, add on to that Latin experience, like, as soon as my abuelita and abuelito were married, it was like, we're having kids. Like, let's get this
Right.
thing going, And I'm just like, did y'all not enjoy like just being together? Like that to me is so.
They got married, and your mom or dad were conceived
Right.
that night.
No,
and it's just
seriously.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, having that Hispanic, that Latin influence, and like, I've just really honestly gotten to the point where I just like, I look at my family, I'm like, I want you all to know, like, I am more than a womb. I am more than someone who gives birth. Like, I have dreams and aspirations for myself, and
Oh yeah.
that to me right now, as selfish as it may sound, is way more important to me than having kids. I do not want to be a mom. I don't want to. And the more I'm starting to feel these pressures, and this is kind of a point that I wanted to make too, the more we start feeling these societal pressures and just pressures in general, the more it makes us resent. We start resenting and getting pissed off, and like, yeah, resentment is like the best word that I can think of in this situation, so
I think it's like it bothers me that women are still treated the way they're treated.
yeah.
I mean, they've made some headway. There's stuff, it's nowhere near what it should be. Women are still treated like they were back in the 40s and 50s, where they're married while they're still young, and they have their looks, and they produce kids, and then you ship them off to college or whatever, and then they
Right.
the cycle rinses and repeats.
Yeah.
And it's just like, women are, as sad as it sounds, like women are barely starting to embrace, like, I don't want to say women are starting to embrace, but society's starting to slowly embrace women as independent.
Right.
And I have a theory as to why that's going on. But from a male perspective, like the one I get a lot, and you hear about it a lot from men, is like, why at 40, nearly 40, are you not married yet?
Yeah.
What's wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with me.
Yeah.
In terms of that, maybe, but like in terms of like what you think, like, I just, or
It's the reality.
what's the one? Oh, he can't commit. Like, it's the whole, like, he can't commit.
Yeah.
That type of thing. And it's like, I'm a planner. As I've gotten older, I've become a planner.
Yeah.
Like, you just heard my whole spiel of like, okay, I'm going to work. Where am I going to retire?
Yeah.
Where am I going to live? To
Exactly.
do that? Like, I plan things out now.
Yeah.
And when all of it's said and done, that's when I will decide, okay, I'm ready to get married. Am I going to have a child? The other thing that scares me about children, and this is going to sound really, really horrible, like, I don't want to raise a child thinking I'm the best father in the world, and then I find out they shot up their high school or something because they hated me. Like, that's one of my biggest fears.
Yeah.
Oh, my dad screwed me up, and I'm like thinking
It's
I'm
like
the
the
best
reality though. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a horrible thing to think, but like you look at the stuff that happens with kids nowadays, and it's like they have poor upbringings.
Yeah.
And then these parents think, they did the best job in the world. It's like, no,
Right.
look what your kid did,
Yeah.
But
yeah.
like that's a fear. I literally have a fear instilled in me, whereas like I don't want to go thinking 18 years I was the best dad I possibly could be, to find out my kid's completely screwed up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the likelihood is
obviously slim, but
it's always that underlying thing where it's like,
I think your feelings are valid.
Smaller scale.
Yeah, I think your feelings are valid in that, and I think it says a lot to who you are as a person, that you want to be the best dad, or parent that you can be. I think that fear is valid, and I kind of honestly like share a little bit of that too. Like, I'm in therapy right now. I'm working on myself, and like I'm not gonna bring a kid to the middle of that. Yeah.
Don't you learn so much about yourself in therapy? I did a couple months myself because I was running into some issues.
Yeah.
And like, it's completely, I learned so much about myself
100%.
and like why I think the way I do. And like, going back to the topic of children, it's like, I don't want to deliver the world an asshole.
I mean,
like,
honestly,
or a potential asshole. Like, I just don't want to deliver the world a potential asshole. And like, I want to be the best dad I can be, and raise someone, that.
Yeah. No, like I said, your feelings are completely valid. And, I think this is also like an interesting, kind of conversation, because, I identify as female and you identify as male, and like, we're getting to talk about these from different perspectives. And like, no, I think your feelings are valid, as morbid and scary as they sound. Like, I think they're valid, and like, I just, these, and I honestly have started to realize, that the younger generations, they're starting to feel the societal pressures a little bit more early, because they are kind of, growing up in social media, and that is like their life. Like, everything that they do and everything of who they are is found in social media, whereas my generation and like yours, how our age gap isn't too bad, like we knew a time before the internet existed. We were able to grow into ourselves a little bit before we were smacked by the internet, and like, internet bullying and all that stuff. So I think the societal pressures, are starting to definitely hit a little bit lower now, and that's why I was so excited to have this conversation, because, and this kind of leads into my next question, do you think that these societal pressures, or what have you been calling them, social influences, have, from like your outside, your RRL, like you talking about your career, do you think that has like definitely, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit, but I want to kind of elaborate on it, but do you think that has all leaked into your streaming career?
So, as you talked about or just a second ago, it's like how we grew up in the era of pre-internet.
Yeah.
I think honestly, you and I got to live in probably the most exciting time anyone could live in. Because in the span of 10 years, there's just been this technological boom that's literally changed the way we live lives.
Yeah.
Not just, we weren't even eased into it either. It just happened.
Literally.
Year after year. Yeah. So I grew up in pre-internet. And it's funny because when I was growing up in high school, and you start thinking about that kind of stuff, where you're going to go to college, et cetera, this
right.
Here, it was, you go to a good college, you study a good major, and you get a good job when you get out. That was the norm. And to an extent is the norm that they still push. I was also kind of raised on that belief as like, there's no career in video games. Like, you can't make any money sitting there playing a video game. Okay, let's look at Ninja. These are very rare, extreme cases. But let's look at Ninja, who's making, 7 figures.
Right.
Or 8 figures. I'm sorry. He's making 8-figure salaries. Let's look at these tournament winners that make millions of dollars in deals and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. It's a very high hurdle to get, but it is possible.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm getting at, I guess the point I'm getting at is that the internet changed the way we can create, like we can build a life. Like it's
Yes.
changed the way we can build a life and a career.
That's a very good point.
YouTube was non-existent in 2001,
Yeah.
2002.
No.
And no one had the idea that you could make a career out of making videos on the internet.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny and an example of that is my mom. I mentioned Jenna Marbles. I'm sure you
Yeah.
probably know who Jenna Marbles is.
Yes.
And my mom had no idea who Jenna Marbles was. And I said,
Yeah.
well, she has 14 million followers on YouTube, and she gets more views per video than some of these shows on TV that you're used to watching.
Yes. Yes.
You know, and it kind of like blew her mind. Like,
Yeah.
wow, I have no idea who this person is, but you know, they're more famous than somebody on, you know, you can ask someone that's in their late teens to mid 20s who Sandra Bullock is, and they'll have no idea.
Yeah, who's that? Yeah.
Yeah, but they'll know who Jenna Marbles is, or you know, they'll know who
Ninja
Logan Paul
is. Yeah.
Ninja, exactly.
Yeah.
They'll know who those people are.
Yeah. Ooh, that's crazy to think about, or wild to think about. Excuse me.
Yeah. Oh, it's most definitely like this is how things have shifted. And what I'm getting at is the internet has changed everything.
Yeah.
So the societal pressures, it's really, really weird how the world's turning out. So the way the system is right now is the education system, the college system, and all that kind of stuff. They're still pushing this narrative like you need to go to college, you need to study a major, you need to have a regular life. There's no future in this for you.
Yeah. Ooh.
When the reality is it is possible.
Yeah.
And I think one of the main reasons that is colleges are scared of the internet.
Yeah.
Because I can go on the internet and I can learn chemistry.
YouTube University. Let's talk
in the course of a few months.
Yeah. You know,
even Google themselves, hey, you don't need to go to college for this. We have our own training program that's catered to what we want.
Yeah.
You know, and
Truly.
colleges are definitely afraid of that because
for sure.
You know, the system itself is, why do I have to pay $80,000 to go learn this stuff when they're telling me I can do it in a year or two at $10,000?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Now I have a question. Now, you know, coming from a Latin perspective, you know, my family, I'll talk more about like my Cuban family. Like they come from just absolutely nothing, just nothing, you know. And, you know, I was told growing up, like, you know, I felt very much so that a lot of what I needed to do was like on my shoulders of you need to like do this for your family. So it was like, you need to make good grades in school. You need to go to college. You need to graduate. You can't get married until you graduate college. You can't do the, you know, like I felt like I was carrying a lot of that weight of like, okay, my family's from Cuba. They have nothing. You know, here I am, second generation, you know, into...
You have that pressure of setting the bar.
Right. And so, you know, I was going to ask you, did you feel that when having to go, did you have that pressure to feel like you needed to go to school, to graduate, get a college degree and all of those things?
So one of the things, and it's interesting that you brought up the therapy thing, because one of the things I learned about myself in there is my dad was, to me, the hardest working person I'd ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
My dad is full Mexican.
Okay.
He came to America when he was like 3.
Okay.
And no standard high school education, some trade school training.
Yeah.
And for someone with his education and his background and stuff, he had a very decent paying job.
Yeah.
For the time.
Yeah.
So he was the hardest working person I knew. And not only was he did mechanical engineering. So he was like drafting and engineering. He was the paper guy.
Okay.
Drew everything out and he saw it on his head on paper. Amazing man in what he could do and his creativity. But to me, like that, I always had this thing in my head where it was like, I have to meet this.
Yeah. I have to fill those shoes. Yeah.
I have to fill those shoes.
Yeah.
You know, and that was probably one of the biggest things, like me and my late dad, that was one of the biggest headbutts we had with each other. is because at the time, and I'll say it now, I was a late bloomer. I was doing like all kinds of stuff that teenagers do that, causing trouble. I wasn't like in jail or anything, but like I ditched school all the time. Like I didn't care.
Hey, that's okay.
All those kind of things, right?
We're not perfect. We all make mistakes.
Oh yeah. And my dad was the hardworking guy. He's like, no, you need to do it. You need to go to school. You need to do this, and you need to start.
I didn't come to this country so that you could,
Never that bad, but he made it clear, like he was displeased with the route I was taking.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like funny. I got my first computer when I was 14, 15.
Okay.
98, 99. And what my dad started figuring out was like, oh, this is what he enjoys. And I kept going on. I took a computer class in junior high, and like he met my computer teacher, who funny enough works at Apple now. In junior high, and my teacher was like, yeah, he's really good at the spreadsheets, and he's good at all that kind of stuff. And my dad started kind of getting the light bulb, and my dad, as hardworking as he was, worked all kinds of overtime and bonuses and stuff like that, and he bought the family computer. Which is funny, back then we don't, like, the family had one computer, right dial-up internet,
like
yeah it's not like now where every kid has a tablet and all that stuff. Like, we had the one computer in the house. And like I started learning how to do all this stuff. And my early content creator days was there used to be this website called punkrockvids.com. Pre-YouTube. What we would do is we would go on all the like late night TV shows like Jimmy Kimmel's and David Letterman's, all that, and we would actually capture streams and recordings of all those performances. Every time they had a punk rock band or an emo band or whatever, we would capture those and we would edit them and we would upload them
Interesting.
to the bowels of the internet. And it's so funny because like I will go on YouTube and I'll look up bands from back then, and I will see my videos that
awesome.
I ripped all over YouTube.
That is awesome.
Under my old name that I don't use anymore, but it's so funny. I don't even say anything. It's just funny. But like, and all that kind of stuff. And this stuff was not legally kosher, you know? But my dad was kind of like, you could do that, like you learn. I was learning all this crazy stuff outside of the classroom. And he gravitated towards that, and he's like, he just let me roll with it. And I was doing all this stuff, and my mom's the one where she's kind of like, are they paying you to do this? And I'm like, no, it's just fun. We're just helping. Like I had people in countries like Ecuador and Cuba and all that stuff. Oh, you put up Taking Back Sunday video from Jimmy Kimmel in America. I love it. And I'm like,
wow,
cool, thanks. Like people loved it. And I was getting all this fulfillment out of it. Like, this is stuff that's awesome. Like, I was spreading my own little thing to the world. And that was like my early days of it. But I was learning all this stuff on computers, like the Napster thing. Like, I was big in the Napster thing.
LimeWire, all that.
Our address is actually in a court document for Napster. You know, when Metallica sued Napster, they had a big stack of paper that said these are all the addresses that downloaded like Metallica in the past 24 hours, and our address is in that document, like forever ingrained in internet history.
That's hilarious.
And it's so funny. I got banned from Napster for a day, or we figured out how to get back on. But and then I started learning, well, what I was figuring out, my dad was figuring out, is I was learning all these skills like editing videos and stuff back then, editing photos, making thumbnails, all that cool stuff. And my dad's getting this thing's like, oh, okay, it kind of makes sense. And I tried to do the traditional thing. I went to junior college and I wanted to be a psychologist, and that was kind of like what I wanted to do, like sex and relationship therapy. If that didn't work, I wanted to do child therapy. I wanted to like specialize in something. And the 7 years as college wasn't working for me. I was getting bored. The motivation of others to do it and all that kind of, like, because most of these kids were in the same boat I was, where it was like, I don't really want to do this. But and that kind of thing. So like and then I went to a trade school and I started learning IT. Like I did a quick boot camp 2-year deal, and not even 2 years, it was a 1-year deal, and that's how I got my career. I got out of there, I did an internship, and then I
Yeah.
was off to the races. So I figured out I'm good at this already.
Yeah.
Why don't I just get the education I need to formalize it?
Yeah.
So going back to the societal pressures of you need to do this, that, this, and this, I'm like, well, I'll just do it my way.
Yeah.
And
I'm glad that you figured that out, because not a lot of us do. You know,
not a lot of it do. And I think the scary thing about it is I think kids that are at that age, they're afraid to do it.
Oh, for sure. Because
They're afraid.
it's the
Yeah.
trail that everyone before them has followed. It's, you
It's
know,
the societal pressure and
right,
influence.
right. And so, you know, this is going to be a little bit funny, but my little brother's name is Erik, but it's spelled with a C. And, you know, he saw me going to college, and, you know, I got my degree in psychology, and, you know, he was very much like, I cannot fill these shoes because it's not something that I want to do, you know. And, you know, my family has like a plumbing company. It's been, you know, in the family for generations since my grandfather came here from Cuba, you know, and like it was really refreshing to like hear my parents say, well, you don't have to go if you don't want to.
Right.
You know? And I'm like, well, I went, you know, bless, but it's okay. Like, that's what I wanted to do, because at that point I was very motivated to be the first, you know, to go to college and graduate. But, you know, it was very refreshing to hear them say, well, you don't have to, you know, you can work in the family business, and, you know, I would love to pass it on to you so that, you know, it can be a generational thing. And, you know, it was refreshing to hear that, because I feel like a lot of kids, they go to school because their parents went to school, and because their parents went to school, you know, and I'm really glad that we're starting to see a shift in that, because you can make careers outside of your traditional educational path.
I think the reason that's happening is the boomer generation that grew up with those ideals is slowly starting to fade away, and now we're at
Makes
Gen
sense.
X and
Yeah.
millennial.
Yeah.
So like millennials, you and I, millennials, we're at that age where we grew up in the age of the internet, and we saw what was possible with
Yeah.
things like content creators
Yeah.
or building internet businesses.
Yeah.
And, you know, like Amazon.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
someone with no formal, real,
Right.
limited college education built
Right.
the largest company in the world.
Right.
You know, we have another guy that built a limited college education who started a website, PayPal. That's how we exchange money back
Yeah.
and forth. And he also helped design one of the most powerful electric cars in the world.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, you know, we're
Things
at that
can
age
happen.
now.
Yes, things can
Yeah.
happen, and, you know,
So-
moves can be made for sure.
That stuff is starting to wean off. Like, those pressures are slowly starting to disappear.
Yeah.
As the millennial generation raises their children.
Yeah.
Which is very, very refreshing to see.
Yeah.
Now, the counteract to that is traditional media is still trying to shove
Yes.
this idea of
Right.
you need to do this thing this way.
Yeah.
A prime example of that is look at the way magazines are marketed to women.
Oh my
Your
God.
Cosmopolitans, your things like Cosmopolitans, your, you know, like not Vogue, what's the other one?
Oh my gosh, I don't even read really.
Cosmopolitan's like,
Yeah.
like a primary focus, because
Yeah.
that one's marketed towards 18 to 25.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
You know, almost like they're actually kind of going into that teenager market.
Yeah.
Slightly.
Yeah, they're
Like,
trying.
and they're trying. And like the societal pressures there of like, here's how you get your boyfriend, here's how to spice up your
Sex.
relationship.
Yeah,
life and
all of
stuff.
that. Yeah.
So, and you know, and then what happens is another example of this is like they use the traditional societal standards to keep it in your head. So like, for example, the Kardashians,
Oh God.
you know, their whole beginning of their television show career or whatever was them being wild 20-year-olds having
Mhm.
parties and, you know,
Mhm.
and all that kind of stuff. That starts to get boring as they get older.
Yeah.
So what happens? They have children.
Yeah.
Let's make the children the primary focus of their lives,
Yeah.
their family relationships.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and then people are like, oh God, the babies and so cute. People get baby fever. and,
Yeah.
you know, well, they successfully just regurgitated the cycle
Yeah.
and keeping that in your head.
Yeah.
And
No, that's an amazing point. It's an amazing point, you know, and
oh yeah.
I mean, I do remember, you know, I've talked about this a little bit, and I don't mind bringing it up, but, you know, I'm dealing with some like eating disorder issues, and I remember looking at the magazine shelves when I would be in Publix with my mom, and it would be like oh my God, look how much weight, you know, I don't know, I'm just going to use it. Jennifer Lopez has gained. And it's like a picture of her like running on the beach. And I'm like, of freaking course she's going to have cellulite and things are going to be bouncing around. She's freaking running on the beach, first of all. Second of all, like there's absolutely nothing wrong with the way that she looks, but it definitely put a lot of pressure on me at a very impressionable age, that if I looked like that at any point in my life, people were going to talk about me and they were going to think these horrible things about me. So you're definitely hitting the nail on the head with that traditional media thing. Because
I did another podcast with a friend of mine where she went through the weight loss surgery.
Yeah.
And the question she had for me was like, the question she had for me was, do you think men and women look at weight loss differently? And I said, not necessarily. But the one big factor is they're marketed differently.
Yes.
Between genders. So like, you know, women, it's constantly drilled into their head that thin is sexy, and you know, it's not about being healthy. It's about being thin and sexy and attractive. And the big thing I said was, they tell you right in the ad, you're gonna love the way you look.
Yeah.
You know, you're gonna love the way you feel. You're gonna love the way you look.
Yeah.
And going back to what you're talking about, is like, most people don't understand that what you're seeing on that page, the amount of hours that go into editing and creating this picture that's ideal to you.
Yes.
Because they don't look like that. There's tons of shading. There's tons of lighting. You know what really gets me? When we were prepping for the Zoom meeting, there's actually a thing on Zoom to improve your appearance.
Yeah, there's like a skin smoothing. Yeah. Yeah.
So like to hide my wrinkles, you know?
Yeah.
Which I have. Like when I shave this off, you can see it. You know, like you see a 40-year-old guy. But like, I'm like, that's kind of messed up.
Yeah.
You know? And but like, like that's how women are treated.
Yeah.
In media, like they have to look this way.
Yeah.
You know, I'm all for the body positivity movement, and I think it's fantastic, but there's also a line there too where your health is a factor, you know.
Yeah. And of course, when it comes to things like that, you know, like that's something that you need to be discussing with your doctor, which is why we talk about, you know,
why we talk about this stuff, which is what I've done, and what, you know, like my other friend that did the podcast, what they did.
Yeah.
So that's a decision you have to make and decide for yourself.
Yeah.
But to go back to what you're saying is, it's forced on you. Like, you need to look this way.
Yeah.
And what's even scary is they say, if you don't look this way, no man's going to love you.
Yeah.
Which is completely, again, societal influence that just drills into your head. You need to do this.
And then switch it to, you know, the male perspective. You need to have a 6-pack. You know, you got to have a Captain America body type, you know, like in order to be successful and be wanted. And that's just not, it's just not true.
So
you know,
there was a funny thing that happened. Women on Twitter and stuff, the Twitter mob, we'll say the Twitter mob, the loud minority, they get upset because men say these things about women and how they look and all that kind of stuff. But a couple months later, Harry Cavill is on Twitter building a PC with the tank top and his muscles are ripping, and look what happened. You know, look at the derogatory stuff that the women posted towards that photo. And I was like, double standard much?
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Yeah.
I don't want to, you know, I'm not here to rustle feathers.
Oh,
but like,
no, of course.
There's a definite double standard there.
Oh.
Now, here's what's really, really interesting is you talk about how men, like, we need to have a 6-pack and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's funny because the dad bod trend is in, right?
Yeah.
But the one thing that they constantly drill in these women magazines and all that kind of stuff is successful men are what you want.
Yeah.
And by successful, they mean income.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
You know,
yes.
You know, that. This. Now, we'll talk about this later, is everyone has their own definition of what success is.
Yeah.
But again, traditional societal standards say wealthy men are successful men, and that what you as a woman want to achieve.
Yeah. Ugh,
you know?
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't drive a Ferrari, or not a Ferrari, not even a Ferrari, but like, I don't drive a Mercedes.
You don't drive a 2021 car, you know? Yeah.
I drive a BMW, but it's a 2010 Mini Cooper. That was made by BMW.
Yeah.
You know?
But,
you see what I'm getting at?
Oh, absolutely.
And like, how do kids measure? Like, how do kids in school measure? And it's bothering me because TikTok's very popular for this. Is
Yeah.
the people with Ferraris,
Yes.
all this kind of stuff, or the sneaker rooms with all
Yes.
these sneakers and stuff, and that's the definition of success, you
Yeah.
know. And the kid's
Yeah.
like, oh, thanks for reminding me I'm poor,
Yeah.
you know. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's unhealthy. And I think it's starting to show up a lot too, is like some of these video game orgs. I'll just say it, I'm not noticing, but like FaZe
Yeah.
promotes this whole thing where it's like they live in this big mansion,
Right.
with this big you know, and they
Yeah.
have this lavish lifestyle,
Yeah.
etc., etc. And this is all done like you do YouTube. This could
Yeah.
be you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
No, I mean, you're telling the truth. And so, you know, to kind of reel us back in a little bit. So, would you say that because of what happened, you know, your direction kind of changing, you know, and your dad allowing you to kind of do the things that you did on the computer, that's why you decided to do content creation? You know, is that how it leaked into content creation, or?
I've always been somebody that likes to share.
Okay.
So like that kind of like it goes with my stars. Like I'm sharing all these punk rock videos
Yes.
with people in other countries and across the world because
Yes.
it's cool for them to see it. And it's our own little community that we love, and
Yeah.
we're sharing it with each other.
Yes.
I've always liked sharing. I've always liked educating to an extent. By no means am I a professional. Just like you said, I'm not professionally
Yeah.
trained in anything I say or anything like that.
Yeah.
Everything's based off my own experiences, but I like sharing my experiences. And I'm fortunately at this age now where I'm getting older,
Yeah.
but I'm still young enough to where I can relate to somebody that's just behind me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And getting to that point in their life, like, what do I do?
Yeah.
Where am I gonna, you know,
Yeah.
how do I figure this out? And like, I
Yeah.
like sharing that information, which is where my content's slowly gonna start shifting to. Like
I
I
love
mentioned
that.
earlier, we're gonna start talking about stuff that happens and how it affects your life as a content creator,
Yeah.
and the decisions you're making and how you see the world,
Yeah.
you know. And it's scary because like society's telling us to see the world as one way right now.
Yeah.
Like, this is how it has to be. And
Yeah.
it's not just the traditional pressures, but like how we see race, how we see sexuality, and all this kind of stuff. Like this is how we have to see it.
Yeah.
You know, I all for what's going on, but we have to understand that not everyone sees everything eye to eye the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. And everyone's journeys are so specific, you know, and not everyone's ready to take on a lot of the topics or battles right now, you know, like sexuality, for example. You know, I'm so glad that we're at a point where it's being talked about more. But like for me, I didn't really talk about myself and come out till last year, you know.
And
So
it's hard. Like
yeah.
it's a personal thing to put
Yeah,
yourself out
exactly.
to the world. A good example of what you just said is Ninja. Remember a couple years ago, Ninja got in trouble with with society and the community and the Twitter mob because he said he didn't want to play games with other women because out of respect for his wife.
Yeah.
And then people put him on this pedestal automatically. Like, you're in this position, you have this influence over.
Yeah.
Does the man make mistakes and does he say things he shouldn't? Yes.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting at is they automatically put him on this pedestal just because of where
Can't
he's
do
at
that.
in status.
Yeah,
right.
you can't do that.
He's simply made it clear he's one of those individuals that he just wants to entertain his community, make his money, and support his family.
Yeah.
And me being old school, like I was raised pretty old school, it's like the man's just respecting his wife.
Yeah. Yeah.
And avoiding any potential issues that could harm his relationship.
Yeah. Now, do you think that because you and I are kind of in these middle points that we are still able to see, however, how that does affect how men and women game together? Because I think it's important that we mention that, because, you know, I want to be able to have male friends and game with male individuals or those who identify as male without it being more than just gaming together. And so, you know, I think you and I are kind of at that middle point where we can see, like, yeah, he just wants to respect, you know, his wife, but we do need to address that just because a male and a female game together, that doesn't mean that there's anything going on, you know.
Right. And
I do think that's an important point to make, for sure.
So I guess my response to that is he gave the reason why. And it's not necessarily because he doesn't like playing with women. I doubt that's the case. The case is that people will take any given situation and they will throw it up on YouTube and create something that isn't true.
Yeah.
So like,
because he's on such a high
right
pedestal, people are constantly like clipping things and like making these clips and stuff, and I mean, you want to talk about societal pressures at a completely different level. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Everything he says and everything he does is like, it's under a watchful eye. Yeah. That, and I can't imagine. And,
so to go with what you're saying, yes, we do need to set this precedent that like males and females can interact with each other and have no sexual innuendo between it. Not every person that's female I talk to, I'm going to be sexually attracted to.
Yeah.
Just like with you, like not every male you interact with, you're going to be sexually attracted to. You will have some level of attraction to them, be personality or because that's why you're interacting with each other in the first place, but it doesn't have to be sexual.
Yeah.
This is stuff that's drilled by society and teenagers' heads.
Traditional media.
Yeah. And it's not even when it comes to that, it's not necessarily traditional media because you see it again all the times on YouTubes and TikToks where it's like, this is how you pick up girls, or she's totally into him, or like, what is it? Oh, he smashed her, that kind of nonsense. They're working.
Yeah.
Whether or not it happened, that's beyond our knowledge.
Yeah.
I don't even care.
Yeah. So okay, so my next question is then, these pressures that we've kind of mentioned and we've kind of talked about, like all of them, it doesn't even really matter. Like, what has motivated you despite feeling those pressures? And I mean, in any way, shape, or form, yes, these things are happening to Ninja or whoever, but like the pressure from that still kind of trickles down to us. So how have you stayed motivated, like despite feeling like you need to figure out your career, you need to figure out where you're going to live, do I want to start a family? Like, how have you stayed motivated, or does that keep you motivated?
I think how I keep going is I'm one of those people that's constantly looking for the next thing.
Okay.
So
a planner, like you said.
I'm a planner, and I'm always searching. Like, I'm always searching for the next thing. So my mom gave me some hassle because I've worked for a lot of different companies over the course of like 10 to 12 years. And my mom's like, you need to start thinking about where you're going to plant your feet and all that stuff. While she's right. But I'm also one of those people that's always chasing the next thing.
Yes.
Like, where can I go next?
Yeah.
If anything, I don't want to be complacent in my life. Like, I want to keep challenging myself. So that's how I keep going. So, to example, like my Twitch journey, video games, like, and it's not just Twitch itself, but it's the streamer Twitter and all that kind of stuff, and a lot of the behavior of what's going on amongst everybody. It's become a very, very different place. 4 years ago, everyone was just happy to be helping out each other.
Right.
We were a community. We were doing this. We were putting ourselves out there, and everyone appreciated everyone that was different.
Yeah.
But now we're all angry at each other, and we're all upset at each other.
Yeah.
Again, because of the way we think and our ideals.
Yeah.
And it bothers me, and what it did is it turned me off from it completely. I took a 2-month break because I was like, I don't have the mental capacity to deal with this right now. And honestly, I don't have to. That's another thing I learned in therapy, is like, I don't necessarily have to get involved in this stuff. I can just walk away from it.
If it's hurting you enough, like you do have to set that boundary of like, I can't do this anymore, or right now, for sure. And we talk about the spoon theory, in the chronic illness community. And it's like, I tell my community, or even my family, like, I do not have enough spoons right now to deal with what you are putting on me right now. Like, and I'm not talking about like, hey, Ash, I need advice on this. I'm talking about like, you need to make sure that you're doing this, and you need, have you thought about what you're going to be doing in 5 years? And it's like, I don't even know what I'm going to be doing tomorrow, if I can be perfectly
What am I having for dinner?
Right. And so I think it's a healthy point that you make, and, a valid point that you make, that we do have to look at our spoons, and what's available. And I think that's totally okay. While being Latin, you know, being Hispanic, I do feel like we were kind of raised in a way that's like, you have got to, what am I trying to say? You have got to be strong. You have to, because everyone that came before you was always that way. They were given no choice. And so I can tell you that has played so much. And this isn't a societal pressure. This is an ethnic pressure, I guess. A cultural pressure, I guess you could say.
Cultural pressure, yeah.
Yeah. And it's that I believed I was so strong for so long that I thought I didn't need therapy. I didn't need medication. I've got this. I'm so strong. When in reality, me telling myself that repeatedly over and over was really hurting me, because I then believed I didn't need help. I didn't need to go to therapy, you know?
The exact same thing.
Right. Right. Exactly.
I was like, I can't go, like, because my dad was so strong and worked hard and hid all of the stuff that bothered him.
Right.
And, you know, I dabbled in things to numb all of that. You know, I had an alcohol problem. I had stuff like that where I was like,
trigger warning, friends, trigger warning. But yes.
I'm sorry, trigger warning.
No, that's okay. I got you.
And I was like, well, okay, I have problems. And eventually I got to, but I kept just hiding it and covering it up, throwing the blanket over it, because it's like, I have to be strong. Now, to go back to the whole, like, if it's hurting you, walk away from it. People want to, like, people in this business right now that are going through this stuff, they want to walk away from it, but they're afraid to, because they feel like it's going to just harbor their entire content creator career.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm totally feeling that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Because it's that thing where it's like, I think you were talking about this, like, oh, I have this, you know, idea is like, oh, no one's going to watch me. No one's going to do this. And to go on with that, I guess, to roll it out here, is people are so focused on people watching them that they're not considering what they're putting out there for people to watch. Yeah. You know, like, and I think it needs to be backwards. You need to want to make this is how I stay motivated, where it's like, I always keep telling myself, I want to create something I'm happy putting out there. Yes. If people find it, then I'm okay with that. Yeah. I'm not worried about a million people coming to see it. Yeah. I'm just worried about I'm happy producing something, and then that one person sees it and they're like, wow, this changed, you know, my outlook on everything. Yeah. That's why I've kind of slowly, like, I've gotten comfortable with just being like, I'll stream when I stream.
Yeah. No, you know, and I respect you for that. You know, and like, we've started kind of talking about it more on the channel, especially when one of my guests, well, actually my two previous guests, Street and Tech, you know, we talked about, it is so important that we start to realize that our impact on this platform is way more, it needs to be what we're focusing on more than anything else, is our impact and like what we're kind of leaving behind. Because as someone who's kind of watched the internet and what it's kind of done, I don't think Twitch is going to be here forever. Do I think it's going to blow up and then, you know, maybe fizzle out? Yeah. But, you know, what are we going to leave? What crumbs are we going to leave behind for other people to pick up and continue the job? You know,
we're all going to move on to something else. No one does this forever. Like, no one sits here and streams on Twitch and does video games forever and makes that the remainder of their life. If you've noticed, like, what's kind of gone on is, like, the people that kind of did this 4 to 5 years ago when it was kind of coming up, they've all moved on. They work at, like, Bethesda, or, you know, they work at GameStop.
The dream. Yes.
Elgato. You know, this was a stepping stone, and to what you figure out, why you figure out what you want to do with your life. And
would you say that keeps you motivated as well? Like, this could be a door opener. For me too, like, my dream, you know,
I was going to ask you, what is it that, like, you want to do? Like, what do you see yourself wanting to do?
So really, honestly, within these last couple of years, I guess because I've had the time to think about it with the pandemic and everything, like, and like my modeling career kind of stopping just because I can't be on set. I'm immunocompromised, you know, all of those things. Like, I'm okay, like, hanging up the heels. I've been doing it since I was 13 years old. Like, I've been doing it forever, you know, but I really would, like, love to work with Tiltify. I would love to work in charity. I would love to start my own charity. Or I would love to work with an organization that, like, sheds a shit ton of light on, like, chronic illnesses,
There you go.
and things of that nature. And I know, and what I'm starting to realize, oh my God, I would love to work for an indie studio though, too, like video games. What I've started to realize is, yeah, content creation probably isn't like my long-term plan, but like definitely staying within this video game realm of things, whether it's charity or working with an indie studio, like
gateway.
Yeah, this is where I want to be. So that has definitely like kept me motivated in some way, shape, or form. So I was going to ask you the same thing.
My case is, it's funny that you bring it up because we're doing it like right now. Like I was sitting here and I was just like, I've always, since I was a teenager, I've always gotten that thing where it's like, you have a voice for radio.
Oh, okay.
Like you should do, like you would sound good on the radio.
Oh, I'm listening now.
I don't know if you feel the same way. Like, I don't know if I have a radio voice or not, but that's all I've heard.
Yeah.
And,
you have a nice voice. Yeah.
Aw, shucks. Like, it's like, okay, you have a voice for radio. And I was like, And like, obviously, traditional radio is very difficult to do.
Yeah.
You gotta go to college and get FAA license and all that kind of stuff. But then podcasts came into the world.
Exactly.
And I never like really took the time to do podcasts. But then I started poking around with podcasts. I was like Serial and My Favorite Murder and all stuff. I'm like, this stuff is really, really cool.
Fun.
And then,
fun.
Everyone's doing video games and stuff on Twitch. And I'm like, I love playing video games and stuff like that, but I don't necessarily like playing them and having to be entertaining doing it.
Yeah.
I enjoy doing it when I do, but like to do it every day constantly. But this I love doing. I like sitting here and just talking.
I love that.
And I can throw it up on Twitch and people can watch it and enjoy it. And it's interesting now because video podcasts are the thing.
Yeah.
Because you can see all the interactions that happen.
Right.
And the facial expressions and stuff. And it's this amazing thing. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start my own podcast.
Yeah.
And I
love that.
Do what I want to do, and I will do the show I want to do, and I will edit it and I will throw it up on the internet. And people can watch it, and if they get it and they enjoy it, I love it. And then like the friends I did have on it that got on board were, they were all about it, and it was a great time. And it's just like, this is what I love doing.
Yeah. No, I love that. It's kept you motivated,
because now, and
for sure,
I'm one of those ones too where I love the fact that I'm creating something. So like when I do one, I don't know how, your system's probably similar, but like when I do one, I have an idea. I have a rundown. Okay. Am I going to have a guest? Okay. I'm going to send the guest a rundown. We're going to plan it out.
Yeah.
And we're going to record it, edit it, throw it up on Spotify and Apple. And like, I've created something for that 2-hour block.
That production.
Whereas, Twitch, it's like traditional Twitch. I'm up here for 3 hours, 4 hours at a time, and I'm hoping something happens. I'm hoping content comes out of it. Whereas the other way around, I'm making something happen the way I wanted to make it happen, which I think should be the ultimate goal. And to keep motivated, and the people that are doing this that want to stay motivated, your end game should not be partner or whatever. Your end game should be something like a Ninja, where you have a brand, you're out there and people know your name.
I agree.
That should be the end, because I mean, I'll be realistic with you, the Twitch partner thing is small potatoes compared to what the potential is.
For sure. I agree 100%. I agree. And like, obviously it's a goal that I'm working towards, but I know that it's only a door. It's not a destination.
It's just a door.
It's the door for more, and for not just for myself either, for my community too, and so, I think this will be a good time to like maybe insert this, like what would you, this is called motivational. So it's how can we keep people motivated? How do you stay motivated? So if someone was feeling some type of societal pressure, whether it be like a woman who, and I can speak from the woman's perspective or whatever, but, like someone feeling that pressure of like, well, you need to get your life together. You're about to be this years old, like what would your advice be if someone was feeling societal pressures?
This is the one question I focus the most on.
No, that's great. That's perfect.
Because it's the most important question.
Yeah.
The one thing that I tell everyone that comes to me, I'm feeling pressure from my mom to go to college, or I need to study this, or they want me to be a lawyer, they want me to be a doctor, traditional societal standard that makes money. I said, I always tell everybody the same thing. I guess before I start, parents, because parents are usually the primary source of societal pressure. Parents, believe it or not, I feel like parents try to live vicariously through their children, especially if their child is on the road to something successful that the parent may not have necessarily been able to achieve. and they always live like this thing because they say it, and it's meant to be enduring and supportive, but it's like, I just want what's best for you.
Yeah.
The real the real answer to that, or the question, I don't know how you want to word it, but it's what's the best for you, or what you think is the best for me, may not necessarily be what I feel is the best for me.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Your parents can make whatever decisions they want about your life all they want, but they don't have to live your life.
Yeah.
Neither do the people that provide their influence or their opinion or whatever.
They do not have to wake up and put on your shoes and live
and
your day to day.
That's where you need to look at yourself and be like, what makes me happy? Now, the counteract to that is, you need to understand is that there's struggles.
Yeah.
You have to work really, really hard, because the odds are against you, depending on what your goals in this content creator game are. The odds are against you. It's a big, wide pond with a million fish, and you're one fish in that pond. So it's hard, but the internet has made it possible to happen. So if you want, I tell anybody, if you want something bad enough, or you dream it big enough and you dedicate yourself enough to it, something can happen.
Yeah.
You may not necessarily make it on Twitch, but you may make it somewhere else. Again,
and you won't even know that was like the path for that thing. Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because everyone has their own definition of what success is.
Yeah. Very true. Very, very true. Like, to me, success is having a roof over my head and having 3 meals, 2 to 3 meals on my table. Like, I mean, to me, and I'm happy. I'm happy. And that is what matters to me. That is what success is. My follower count, the amount of likes, how many subs I have, none of that shit is going to matter when I'm dead. Honestly, none of this is going to matter when I'm dead, but like, what am I leaving behind? What messages
what are they going to remember Ash for?
Right. The impact that I have made, that's what's going to live on, and so go ahead.
Don't forget, because this is important. Don't forget the impact you leave on yourself.
True.
Because because my biggest fear is dying with regret.
Yeah.
I didn't get to do this. I didn't get to do that.
Which is why I'm covered in tattoos now. Yeah.
Who cares? I'm in my skin for 80 some odd years, average. So it's not like I got to die with it. And who cares if I'm old with tattoos? Like these are trademarks of my life. These are my journey. These are photographs on my body. Who cares?
Yeah.
But the idea is my idea says, yes, roof over the head, food in the stomach, clothes on the back, standard stuff. But my idea of success is waking up and not being miserable. I wake up and it's like, okay, cool, I'm excited to look forward to the day, because I can tell you there's a ton of people that wake up miserable because they got to get up and do a job they hate. And it's just a matter of, and
God,
don't be
that's
afraid.
a whole new conversation there.
And we've all been there at some point.
Absolutely.
But don't be afraid to like wake up and challenge yourself. And if mom or dad are mad at you, okay, that's probably going to be some collateral damage you might have to deal with. But again, look at it. If mom and dad aren't happy with the way you're doing things, that's on them. At
the end of the day, like, you're their child. Like, they should be happy for you because you're happy,
Right.
And, I'm definitely very thankful for my parents, because they saw how miserable I was going to college and getting my master's and, doing counseling. I was freaking crying every day coming home from work because I would hear the most horrible stories, and they just saw like how unhappy I was. And
my mom told me.
So
it's so funny. My mom told me, she was like, I was really worried about you in high school. Like, I was worried about you, but then she's like, at least I know you turned out okay.
Yeah.
And that was enough. Like, I was like, okay, that was enough. Know, my biggest regret is like my dad not being alive to see that I turned out okay, because I didn't help him at all. But like, you have to live your life. Like, this is the life you live. Take challenge yourself.
Yes.
If Twitch isn't working, don't be afraid to go do something else elsewhere. The people that like what you do will go and they'll follow it. I'm so proud of like the people that I've met on this platform over the years. Lady Devin, who works at Bethesda, like that was her dream. She lives her dream now. May Kaylee, who's on GameStop and writes for GameStop and all that stuff. Like, and Ash, who now got out of a job she hated,
And
Miss
works for
Ashrock,
Tiltify. Yeah.
and works for Tiltify, and she wakes up and she's happy and she's excited
Yes.
about life again.
Yes.
That's
That's
the biggest thing.
motivating. That's motivating
the
within
goal.
itself. Yeah, for sure.
That's the goal. The goal I think anybody should have in their life is when they wake up and they be like, what can I get done today?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
not being like, oh God, I got to do this again. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, what can I do today? Like,
Yeah.
what can I change? And, you know, I guess the best advice I can give for someone that's in this and feeling societal pressure or influence is just influence yourself.
Yeah.
Be your own, you know, influence. And
Cheerleader, your own everything.
Yeah, be your own cheerleader. You know what? I can do this. There's a big YouTuber named Linus Sebastian. He runs Linus Tech Tips.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of him, but he was on another podcast, and he had bosses when he used to do the channel for the company he worked for. And then he went to his boss and he said, hey, we just did $1 of ad revenue this month. And then the boss was like, well, it's just $1, da da da. But Linus is a numbers guy, and he said, you don't understand. That's double.
Yeah.
We just doubled growth.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
like that's his idea of success.
Yeah,
it
love
went
that.
up 50 cents, but he doubled growth. So
Yeah.
he's growing. That's his success. I'm
Yeah.
growing. I'm going. The trail's blazing. That's the way you should feel about yourself.
Oh, 100%.
Don't be afraid. Just
Yeah.
be like, you know, what doesn't work on Twitch may work elsewhere.
Yeah. No,
You know,
seriously, truly. And
everyone has something.
yeah. Yeah. And so, you know, I think you started kind of going into it by yourself, and that's why I switched the question. So like, if someone was having a hard time right now, you know, what would your overall advice be to them? And like, obviously, you know, like, we're getting out, I mean, we're still in a pandemic, but we're like slowly making those changes to try and like get back out into the world. So, you know, what would just your advice be to someone who might be having a little bit of a hard time right now? And it doesn't have to relate to societal pressures or anything like that. This is more of just like a blanket statement of, you know, having a hard time. What would your advice be to them?
Change up your routine. Try something new. Again, don't be afraid. If you're going through a hard time in life right now, you know, stay strong, get help if you need it. But if you're trying to break out of a funk, or you're just not happy with where you're going with things, just try something new.
Yeah.
Go and try and draw. Go get a hold of a guitar and try to learn an instrument or something, and like break out of your mold, break out of your routine.
Yeah.
Because you might discover something that you're meant to be doing.
Yeah.
You just don't know it yet.
Yeah.
I started taking up photography again. Like I went and I bought a camera and all that kind of stuff, and I started taking it up again, and like I enjoy doing that stuff. It's serene to me. It's relaxing.
Yes.
Again, I'm changing up my routine. In the case of us, where it's video games on the internet, pick a game and play it by yourself at home. Because that's one of the problems I had. That's what got me in the funk too, was not only was it just streamer Twitter, but I started feeling like every video game was a missed opportunity because I wasn't streaming it.
Yep.
And I'm just like,
nope.
I love video games, and I can enjoy video games, and the world can see that I love and enjoy video games.
Yes, without having to stream it. Right.
Without showing them that I do.
Right.
You know, I can play the game off stream and just post pictures of it and talk about it, or I can do a little blurb on TikTok about how I love this game, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, like, it's just do things for you. Like, get out of the funk and do things that are for you. Start loving yourself again, because people dedicate themselves to this thing, this thing that's like, I need to do this, that, this, and this, because if I don't, I won't succeed. Again, success is relative. It's everyone's different on what their definition of success is. It's relative. And you know, again, you're forcing yourself to try and be successful on Twitch because you think you need to be, because someone told you that that's the only way you're gonna be successful or in the world.
Societal pressure.
Pressure.
Yeah.
You need to stream 9 days a week. You know, there's only 7 days, but you need to make it like 9.
Yeah.
You know, don't sleep.
12 hours a day. Yeah.
Yeah. No. I would rather be one of those ones that does one good show for 4 hours out of the week.
Right.
Than 6 shows, 8 hours.
Agreed.
You know, it's just change up your routine, think differently. Don't be afraid to think different, and just, you know, keep challenging yourself. Because when you challenge yourself, that's when you get motivated again. And you're like, oh, this is cool. Like, I enjoy doing this. Or like, you learn how to edit a video and you go like, oh man, I learned how to do this in Premiere finally, or Final Cut, whatever your choice is. And then you're like, well, let me try this. Let me do this.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're off to the races doing something new and you're finding out what you love.
Yeah.
Everyone right now that's starting, you're at that point in your content creator career right now where you can change it up all you want in the world to figure out what works. That's the best time when your viewership's in that 1 to 5 range. That's the best time to be changing everything up and figuring it out for you.
I agree. Because
don't do it when you have several thousand, because then that's what's expected of you.
Yeah.
Do it while you're in the beginning and do all that. It's like just like life. Do all that wild, crazy stuff when you're young before you have the commitments.
Yeah.
It's true.
No,
like do all that wild,
honestly.
crazy stuff when you're young.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because then your body and your mind are just like freaking too tired. Yeah, no, but seriously, I freaking giggled, but like no, honestly, and like.
Oh no, I love the giggle.
You know, and so I think it's a good point to make here too. Like, your life and my life aren't stopping. Your life is not stopping at 40 and mine isn't stopping at 30. Don't let society don't let society make you like, especially as a woman, don't let society make you feel like 30 is old. Like, I'm in my fucking prime, y'all. Okay, I'm just saying. No, but you know what I mean? Like, don't let society make you feel like that next that next 10 years, like that's it, like that's the end, so I thought I always define
prime like you'd be like, how old are you? Oh, I'm 35. What are you doing right now? Oh, I just started a new job and I'm loving every day of it, and like I'm doing all this cool wild stuff. And I'll be like, you're in your prime. Yeah, no, I love that. Just like happiness, and I don't know, I've loved this conversation and I appreciate you coming on to talk about it with me. Thank you for having me. Of course. And to kind of end things out again, I would love for you to tell everyone where they can find you again and just your channel and social stuff. Okay. I am Erik Anthony. I'm a variety content creator on primarily Twitch. I also do a podcast called The Good People Podcast. You can find it on Apple, Spotify. I stream mostly Nintendo story-driven stuff, old school retro games, and I try to keep that Friday night pizza vibe from when you were young in front of a TV and a console. So I love it. Yeah, you can find me at Erik, ERIK _DA_nerd on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram. So talk about why you are slowly converting to Erik Anthony. Talk about that real quick with us, if you don't mind. Part of it is me getting older. Okay. Where it's like, do I want to be 40 and be the nerd? Like, Yeah. And then again, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't want to be locked into a persona or whatever it may be. Like, I want my name and everything to grow with what I do. Gotcha. Like, I'll always be Erik Anthony. Whatever I do with Erik Anthony, I'll always be Erik Anthony. And it's just one of those things. And I've always, like, my end game, like, I would love to do, like, as a dream is like, like when you watch E3 or whatever, and they have the panels with the different people and they talk about what they just saw and all that kind of stuff, and they have their names slapped across the little bottom thing right there. I just think Erik Anthony would look really sweet. Oh yeah, absolutely. I love that. I mean, honestly, if I could be honest, like, that's why I chose Ashlina, because I love it. Like, boom. Well, that, and if I need to rebrand or change my brand, okay, your name's not gonna change. No. What does that even mean? I don't really know. I can make it mean whatever I want it to mean, So no, I wanted you to touch. I'm highly disappointed. I'm kind of disappointed it didn't go to /Lena though. Okay, that is my Etsy shop name. Okay, so don't be too disappointed. But no, what game are you playing right now on stream? Tell us about St. Jude and all that stuff too. It's been Mass Effect Legendary Edition. I've been diving into Mass Effect 1. Currently up to $531. I have a goal of 1,000. We got a week left. Mm-hmm. Tough hill to climb, but we're gonna do what we can do. I also took into consideration, I was off for 2 months. I haven't really streamed. I'm recovering myself, and it's like, you know what we do, every dollar counts. Exactly. We're all going to the same pool. Exactly. I'm just honored to be doing it again and having a good time and motivating each other. Exactly. Well, thank you for joining me. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for the wonderful conversation. I hope you had a good time. I had a fantastic time. I love being on the opposite end of it. It keeps me on my toes. You are a fantastic host, by the way. You ask great questions.
My heart, thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate
I
that.
love watching. I like watching. Like I love the one with Jambo. I watched the Jambo one. The
Yeah.
Jambo one was a lot of fun. I
Yeah.
peeked in and out of the last one you did, and I was like, yeah, this, you enjoy it. You gotta. I love the name
Yay.
because everything's about you're motivating.
Yeah.
Your positivity is just that one thing. Even when you're down with your like you're having downtime with yourself, like you're feeling bad about where you're at, you always try to keep people moving, and that's just one of those positive things about you. That's fantastic.
Eric, that is so kind of you. Thank you so much.
When I'm down, I disappear.
Yeah.
You know? You're putting yourself out there for like, hey, I'm not in a good place right now, but you know what? We'll get through this together. And I think the world of that. That's mad respect.